In this content talk, we will be thinking more about how to create inclusive environments using accommodations. Environmental supports. Environmental supports is when we alter the physical, social, and temporal environment to promote participation, engagement, and learning. Teachers work hard to develop lessons that get each child individually actively access to the learning. Even when the most thoughtful lesson plans and well-structured classroom routines occur, some children just struggle to participate or maximize their potential. Simple accommodations to the environment will allow children access and participation, which leads to increased learning. Teachers often, with the best intentions, offer physical and verbal support to children in their classroom when they see an opportunity to increase engagement. However, a subtle cue from the environment may be all that is needed to increase a child's independence and level of participation. Cues from the environment can be beneficial to increase children's independence. We work in subtle and inclusive ways by not singling out a particular child. This leads to empowering all children and making them feel like a part of the community. This also allows teachers to be more efficient with their time. To increase a child's participation, make small adjustments to the physical, social, and temporal environment. Small adjustments to the physical environment, to the physical materials and space, such as environmental arrangement, defining clear boundaries, the placement of materials, the management of materials, and visual supports. In my own teaching experience, I always found it very, very beneficial to include children in helping with the physical arrangements of the classroom and of the tools. The children got to know these tools really carefully. They also really took ownership, and that increased their capabilities for taking care of the classroom and being able to help other peers when children couldn't find the materials they needed. For social adjustments, small adjustments to the social environment, such as intentional groupings and selecting intentional materials, can be helpful. Temporal adjustments are relative to the schedule and the time spent on various tasks. Small adjustments can be made to the materials and space in the physical environment to promote higher levels of participation. You can change the space and the arrangement of the furniture, intentionally manage materials such as limiting, adding, using props, or rotating materials. You can make boundaries obvious to indicate where children can go or what materials can be used and returned. We can add visual cues to help this take place instead of verbal directions and constant reminders. Changing the space as a physical adjustment can be the location and arrangement of materials, centers, and activities, and using creative ways to support individual needs. These examples from an in-service suite will not necessarily work in all classrooms or with all children with a given issue. The goal is just to show you some examples here. So in photo 1, a child has difficulty sitting at the table and staying with small groups. So the modification is the teacher moves the small group to the floor where the child is more comfortable and less likely to get up to leave. In photo 2, a child darts out of dramatic play, never staying long enough to be engaged. So the teacher pulls these 2 large chairs over to kind of create a boundary to encourage the children to stay longer. A child is learning to recognize letters, but gets distracted easily when looking at books. This is in the 3rd photo. So a child who is a dual language learner needs periodic rest and privacy after activities that involve a lot of language processing to give their mind an opportunity to catch up and really process what they're thinking, what they hear, what they're thinking in their home language, what that would be in their classroom language. A child with challenging behaviors acts out when overwhelmed by too much stimulation and needs a break. So having a space that's a cozy book corner that's tucked away in a quiet, low traffic area is important. Classroom materials can be used in many ways to support individual children, and managing these materials is one way in which we can minimize, vary, and strategically use these materials to motivate the desired behavior and increase their engagement. In photo 1, a child has difficulty transitioning between activities and often wanders off. So an accommodation is before a difficult transition, the teacher gives the child an item related to the next activity, keeping the child's focus on pairing the object with the activity. A child quickly loses interest in story time. An accommodation is the teacher provides pictures and props to make the stories more concrete and engaging. A child gets frustrated and overwhelmed in photo 3 in their dramatic play area. The teacher removes some of the materials and posts visuals on the wall of different ways to play with the materials there. Physical adjustments can also mean that we define boundaries. A simple way to increase engagement is to provide children with clear visuals that indicate where they and their materials belong. This strategy is often beneficial to many children in the classroom. A child has a hard time sitting still at circle and ends up touching and leaning into peers. The teacher puts out carpet squares in which name tags indicate where each child belongs during circle and spaces. The teacher also places name tags behind the carpet squares to prevent some children from playing with them during. That's also the other part, is when we do put these materials out, how can we ensure that they're not going to actually distract during the lesson? A child doesn't want to stay with the group at snack time because the dramatic play is more enticing, so the teacher puts a stop sign out to indicate when free choice centers are closed and removes it when they are open. A child is highly distracted by a computer and often tries to play it during inappropriate times, so the teacher covers the computer with a blanket or with a tablecloth until it is available to the child. Based on her many years of experience as a teacher and watching teachers in action, Gail Joseph is going to share an example of a simple change to the physical environment that made a real impact on a child's independence and participation.
We had a child that was having difficulty at both lunchtime and small group time in kind of doing their own work. So there was this child who was great at adding to other people's works at small group time, so putting glitter or painting on their pictures, but not really attending to her own work. So one small change we made was to put her work on a bright blue tray. So it gave this kind of visual information about, this is my workspace and these are the things that I'm working on. And as soon as we put that in place and said, this is Chloe's blue tray, this is your work, she no longer was messing with her neighbor's work and really increased her participation in her own small group activity. So I think about it as like turning up the volume a little bit about where my space is, and that really helped.
Physical adjustments can also include adding visuals. The use of visual supports is one of the easiest ways to increase a child's level of independence. There are many ways visuals can be used. Visuals can be used to establish rules and routines, support various aspects of play, help children understand and regulate their emotions, enhance communication. Visuals don't teach new behaviors. They won't teach a child to do something new, but they provide reminders without drawing unwanted attention to the child. It's important to first teach the meaning of those visuals before expecting independence. Visuals are good for everyone. Visuals are helpful to children for whom they were designed, and often many children will benefit from them. Visuals need to be carefully placed and accessible to be effective. The children have to be able to see them, to use them, and to know them. The function of the visual usually determines its placement. So if you are needing to put the visual for how to use the listening center, you're going to put that right by the listening center equipment. Visuals needed for transitions can be carried in the teacher's apron, pocket, hip pack, or hang from a loop belt on a ring. You can also keep these in a basket in your circle area so you know how to go get those. Those used for group activities can be kept in that same basket or tray with other materials. Some visuals can be given to children to manage. This is very appropriate when children are able to work on self-monitoring, and it helps them really stay focused during the transitions. Visuals can't always remember rules, especially when they're or children can't always remember rules, especially when they're distracted or overwhelmed with emotions. So we have visuals for rules and routines. Some emotions such as anxiety and sadness and anger really can flood the brain and help children, or I shouldn't say help, actually minimize children's capacity to focus because the brain is flooded with those strong emotions. And so we want to get them calmed down, help them calm down. But visuals can help give children reminders for increasing their compliance and engagement. Routines are also difficult for children to learn at times, and so many routines involve multiple steps. That's why breaking it down, as we saw with task analysis, can be very helpful. Teachers who use visuals break down the steps and give children a level of support. In photo 1, a child struggles to remember all the steps for getting ready to go out in the snow and often gets distracted. An accommodation is that the teacher puts a picture for each step. And then when the child is there, the distractions are minimized as the children are able to see the next picture: snow pants, boots, hat, gloves. A child often elbows and pushes another child while waiting in line. So, for example, the teacher makes a poster that illustrates several things that you can do while you're waiting. I can sing the ABCs. I can count to 10. I can sing Wheels on the Bus. I can still sing Tiny Tim. I can sing Where is Thumbkin? I can sing Simon Says. And so on. In photo 3, a child is eager to play with toys and supplies, but hesitant to help put them away. The teacher posts a drawing in each activity center first, what it looks like to play, then what they do with the materials when they are finished. Because children learn through play, it can be very meaningful to support children who struggle to engage in play-based activities by giving them visual supports. Play skills can be supported and enriched in many ways by using any type of visual that you might find needed. A child is an advanced learner, and I really hate to use that term advanced learner. So let's say a child is displaying behaviors that are beyond the typical developmental continuum for that child's age. And so, because we can have children with special needs and we can have children that struggle behaviorally who actually have strengths in different areas. So it's really important not to generalize an advanced learner. So we might have a child who is particularly skilled at building, for example, and really has this interest in the block area. So the teacher can put out different pictures of more complex structures to really help encourage and express further development. A child may have a goal to increase pretend play skills, but usually just watches others in the dramatic play center. So the teacher may encourage the child to set the table for restaurant and might put a placemat out that shows where different items go. Several children who need to expand, of course that's functional play, and functional play is sometimes an entry-level type of play that will come as they begin to pretend and use their imagination. Several children in photo 3 are needing to expand their play skills and spend more time in the with toys and with games during free choice. Other children are frustrated because they don't have a chance to play there due to overcrowding. The teacher puts up a poster that allows only 4 children in that area at a time. Children want to play there and can place their pictures there in the 4 spots. A time limit is then implemented to encourage children to move and explore new play areas. I think that's important if you're going to, I personally never limited how many children could come into an area because I wanted it to naturally occur that children realized, oh, all 7 of us don't fit in this area. What can we do? And then that allowed and encouraged children to negotiate. They learned to argue and defend their idea in a very calm and thoughtful manner. They also learned how to make another choice, you know, because sometimes the simple discussion was, oh, I'll come back later. But we never know these things unless we give children a possibility. So if you do put a limitation up, as this poster indicates, it's important to maintain some time limits because other children are going to become frustrated. When possible, you could always just expand and have 2 toy and game areas, and then there would be more opportunities for all children to get to spend time there. This video shows an example of a visual support used to promote the participation of a child in dramatic play. To help the child play more appropriately with the materials and other children, the teacher uses a play script.
What are we going to put in the bag?
What's it say?
This says, put away, give to a friend, ask for a turn. So this is Andy's plan in dramatic play, and we can play with him. He's going to get a bag, clean the table, put the food away, make a phone call. Let's do the first step. Baruch's going to help you set the table.
Me too.
Clara.
You put some food.
Okay, so you're going to help put the food on the plate. The next thing you're going to do is
Put your kitchen. Put some food. And put some food. Put your food. And you pull away, okay?
good, but we can come and have 2 kids not these.
That's my mom. Yeah?
Oh, it's water.
Hiya, Mom. Hiya, Dad. Hiya, Dad. Okay, I will be right back to my home.
A lot of our visuals are signs. We have signs peeled up, like I can just hold a sign up and they'll see a kid sitting crisscross applesauce and they know exactly what to do.
We have large group visuals, so the bigger poster size visuals, the whole paper size visuals. Then we have some visuals for individuals in our classroom, so the smaller ones. For example, we may have a schedule for some students, individual schedules. So they'll have their own schedules showing them, okay, now we're going to small group, so there'll be a picture of 4 kids in a small group. And now we're going to large group, so they'll see sitting in a circle.
It's a sign to remind them of the rules without actually having to state them, so they can stop for a minute and think, what does this mean? And then they can show us that they know what that rule is without us actually having to repeat it. It gives them time to think and follow through.
When we do our group transitions, we do lots of visuals. So we would have a large chart visual showing them what the expectation is, what we want them to do, this is what it should look like. And then we have those individual visuals for some students. So we would give the instructions to the entire class, and then we would reiterate those instructions for certain individuals during that time.
Our tip is for support for boarders, because some of our kids like to flip around, and we would like for them to have room to move and flip or whatever without actually hurting another kid. So it gives them space and room and not make them feel as confined.
They love to move, and more of them are attentive when they're moving. So giving them their own individual space to move in, it helps them a lot in helping them focus during group activities.
Ahora, ¿qué es lo que sigue? Ángela, ¿qué es lo que sigue? Después de que le hicimos esto, el hoyito con la perforadora, ¿qué seguimos para hacer?
Some of our students are working on goals of becoming integrated into larger group activities, and for that they do have the choice. Some they'll sit in a large group for a few minutes, and then they may want to go off by themselves, which is totally fine. And then when they're off by themselves, they're still working on goals, as in writing and working on puzzles, fine motor things, cognitive goals, things of that nature. We're working on it as an integration into our larger group activities. Maybe they want to sit at the rug for a couple of minutes, which is great, which is a part of their goals. And maybe they become restless a little bit. So we don't want them to have to remain in the group and be restless and inattentive. So then they have the option of going to another activity, which is also working on more goals for them.
In the past with a child that particularly didn't like their food to touch. So we would bring in a divided plate, and that child had their food in the individual areas on the plate and ate very well when we would do that. Currently, I have a child that I use a bumpy seat. It's a rubber seat with bumps on it for them to be able to sit in their chair to try to control their impulsivity to want to move around and fidget.
I use a variety of different chairs. Here's a cushion that I use. There's other kinds of weird inflatable cushions. I use a rocking chair for a child to help her attend at circle times, meeting times, and stuff like that.
With this one child in particular, about signing in. So she has some motor issues, some motor delays, and so we've tried using a regular pencil, we've tried using a vibrating pencil, and we found that the most successful modification that we found was to use an iPad. It was much more engaging for her. So what we did is we practiced first just doing the letters of her name in random order, and then working again to try to sequence the letters correctly, all on the iPad. So she's doing that, and now we're at the point where that modification's still in place. So she does the iPad, she uses the iPad to practice her fine motor, and then we move it to a paper pencil activity right afterwards, and she's becoming much more successful doing that. So by combining both of them, she's become more successful and independent in writing her name.
We use curriculum modifications with children who are not participating. That child might be struggling, that child might have lack of interest for some reason, but we also use them for children with significant needs. And sometimes that might require some special equipment, or it might require some materials adaptations that are a little bit different than you might have in your classroom right now. One of the ways to approach that would be to talk with your consultant, whether you have a visiting special educator or a visiting therapist. They might have some ideas or be able to help you access some special equipment that you might not have in your classroom right now. But they also can help you be creative, because sometimes it doesn't take expensive special equipment. So children, just as an example, children who use walkers or might need some kind of aid to help them with being mobile can sometimes push their chairs around as a substitute for a walker. And there might be some other ideas that you and your consultant can think of that would be more like the materials that you already have in your room.
Ooh, water.
Bless you. Can I put you in small group? Kaden, you know.
Come
with me and see what we're going to do. And for Miss Jules, Justice, can you do Miss Jules' table?
How y'all get there? That water.
That water. What do y'all see? Is it water? Be careful.
Hey, cool.
What do you think we're going to do with that water, guys?
Cool.
We're going to do the same thing. Look at Miss Jules' table.
Hey, hi.
Do you see the water, guys?
Gabriella.
Be careful with it. Let's see what's going to
Hi.
happen.
Hi.
Hi.
Cold.
Oh, do you see hot and cold water? Which one's cold?
Yes, we know.
Okay, Hayden, you want to put it in
I
the
got
water?
mine out.
You got it out?
I took it out like this. It was a hole right there.
How did you get it out so fast?